A classified orbital reconnaissance sweep on March 15th detected vessel activity in the South China Sea that hadn't been part of any official naval bulletin. The warship, maintaining 18 to 20 knots, wasn't either of the two nuclear carriers already positioned in Middle Eastern theater. It wasn't a missile cruiser. It wasn't operating within any standard surface warfare formation. And what intelligence specialists were monitoring was a 45,000-ton amphibious warfare vessel packed with Marines and stealth aircraft, racing southwest toward the Malacca Strait without any public disclosure and no officially declared destination. Naval tracking enthusiasts had identified her 48 hours earlier, transiting waters south of Taiwan via the Luzon Strait, operating alone, separated from the two amphibious transport docks shed, had been working alongside in the Philippine Sea. Just 7 days before, the vessel under observation was USS Tripoli, hull designation LHA-7, and Pentagon communication channels maintained total silence regarding her operational orders. Her course, however, communicated everything necessary. Tripoli was heading directly for the Persian Gulf, and the rationale driving that rapid deployment was a strategic crisis that 2 complete carrier battle groups, 8 guided missile destroyers, and over 6,000 combat sorties had completely failed to break. Since the opening days of March, the Strait of Hormuz has functionally transformed into a commercial shipping dead zone. Tanker movement has evaporated to nearly zero. Standard baseline figures show 138 vessels daily. By the middle of March, individual days saw perhaps 1 cargo ship attempting the transit. Other days saw absolutely none. No fewer than 16 commercial vessels have sustained attacks since combat operations began, resulting in 8 merchant crew fatalities. Insurance underwriters withdrew war risk coverage entirely. Maersk suspended all Strait operations. Crude oil prices rocketed past $115 per barrel. The IRGC issued public statements declaring any vessel attempting passage would be destroyed by fire. And despite the United States Navy annihilating more than 60 Iranian naval vessels, destroying all 4 of Iran's most advanced Shahid Soleimani-class corvettes, eliminating over 30 mine warfare platforms, and prosecuting approximately 6,000 strike missions inside Iranian territory within 3 weeks. The Strait remains operationally closed, not because Iran maintains a credible naval force, it categorically doesn't, because 1 missile striking 1 supertanker is adequate to guarantee that no insurance provider globally will underwrite coverage, and Iran retains a missile capability. That's the operational paradigm Tripoli fundamentally transforms. This isn't a standard amphibious warfare platform. Tripoli represents the Americlass Flight Zero variant, one of just 2 ever built without a well-decked the interior flooding compartment, traditionally employed for deploying landing craft. When the Navy publicly announced that design decision, criticism erupted immediately and intensely. An amphibious platform unable to deploy landing craft seemed to fundamentally contradict its core mission. But that design trade was deliberate. The space conventionally designated for the well deck was converted into dramatically expanded hangar capacity and substantially increased aviation fuel storage. The result was a platform capable of simultaneously launching and recovering up to 20 F-35B Lightning II-S stealth strike fighters, or approximately half the strike capacity of a nuclear supercarrier, at dramatically reduced operational expense. In May 2022, Tripoli deployed to the Western Pacific and loaded 20 F-35Bs aboard for the initial operational validation of what Marine Corps strategists designate the Lightning Carrier concept. So that deployment proved the vessel could operate as something the United States hadn't deployed in decades, and light strike carrier with 5th-generation stealth fighters functioning independently of traditional carrier strike group architecture. Presently, Tripoli is carrying components of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, approximately 2,500 Marines and sailors who just completed exercise Iron Fist 26, with Japanese self-defense forces from late February through March 9th. The 31st MEU represents the Marine Corps' sole permanently forward-stationed expeditionary unit in the Pacific, based at Okinawa. It operates with a full combined arms capability, AMPAN. Infantry Battalion, a composite air element including MB-22B Ospreys, AL-1Z Viper attack helicopters, AL-1Y Venom utility helicopters, CH-53E Super Stallion heavy transport helicopters, and F-35Bs from Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 121, providing escort for Tripoli, are the guided missile cruiser USS Robert Smalls and the destroyer USS Rafael Peralta. Together, these 3 vessels constitute a completely autonomous expeditionary strike group capable of air superiority operations, anti-surface warfare, amphibious assault execution, and sustained ground combat, all accomplished without landing a single Marine until the commanding officer determines the tactical window has opened. And the essential question is what Central Command plans to execute with this force once it arrives in theater in roughly 10 days, beyond a highly restricted circle at MacDill Air Force Base and Pentagon leadership. Nobody possesses definitive knowledge, but the operational logic is straightforward to follow. The Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group has been stationed in the Arabian Sea since before hostilities commenced. Lincoln's air wing launches from approximately 500 miles distance from the strait. A complete sortie cycle at that distance provides a fighter perhaps 15 to 20 minutes of loiter time above the shipping corridors before fuel reserves mandate carrier return. Tripoli doesn't require a 500-mile standoff. She's more compact, demonstrates superior survivability in constrained littoral waters compared to a supercarrier, and was specifically designed to operate nearer to threat zones. Stationed 100 to 150 miles from the strait, her F-35Bs could sustain patrol presence over the shipping channels for an hour or more per mission. That essentially triples continuous air coverage over the 2-mile-wide transit zones where supertankers face maximum vulnerability. But the F-35Bs may not represent the most critical strategic asset aboard Tripoli. The Marines do. Iran's coastline bordering the Strait of Hormuz represents some of the most intensively fortified geography in the Middle East. The IRGC has dedicated decades building what it terms underground missile cities and extensive tunnel networks excavated into mountainsides and coastal cliffs throughout Hormozgan province, containing anti-ship cruise missiles, fast attack craft, unmanned surface platforms, sea drones, and naval mines. Qeshma Island, located directly inside the strait, houses an underground missile complex that military analysts characterize as a fortress. Shore-based artillery positions equipped with C-802 and Ghadir anti-ship missiles are integrated into rock structures near Bandar Abbas. The Ogab 44 underground air facility protects Iranian military aircraft inside mountain infrastructure. Iranian state television has broadcast imagery depicting weapons mounted on automated rail mechanisms inside tunnels prepared for immediate deployment. These represent targets that air operations cannot dependably eliminate, and explosive munition can seal a tunnel opening. The IRGC constructs another. A bomb can eliminate a launcher detected in the open, but launchers remaining underground, surfacing exclusively to fire before immediately withdrawing, prove nearly impossible to neutralize through air power exclusively, and that's why the Wall Street Journal disclosed that U.S. military strategists are reconsidering something the Pentagon hasn't genuinely contemplated since the Korean War in amphibious ground assault on Iranian sovereign territory, specifically targeting the Hormozgan and Bushehr coastal regions. Designed to push launch systems beyond effective engagement range of the shipping corridors, whether that operation advances remains a policy determination far exceeding Central Command's authorization level. But the capabilities necessary for it are currently en route. A Marine Expeditionary Unit can deploy forces through helicopter and tilt-rotor insertion directly onto geography that hasn't been prepared for ground defensive operations, entirely circumventing minefields and coastal barrier systems. Vertical envelopment inserting combat forces from the air behind adversary positions represents exactly what the 31st MEU continually trains to execute. The islands positioned within the strait, including Abu Musa and the Greater and Lesser Tums, represent Iranian-controlled locations that have consistently appeared in contingency planning as potential targets for eliminating anti-ship capabilities. Capturing them would remove firing platforms positioned directly above the shipping routes. Meanwhile, the Navy is deploying the supplementary assets required to reopen the strait. 3 littoral combat ships Canberra, Tulsa, and Santa Barbara. The forward deployed in Bahrain, equipped with mine countermeasure mission modules that replace the recently retired Avenger-class mine warfare vessels. Each LCS can deploy towed acoustic arrays in the ANAQS to row a mine detection apparatus, but mine neutralization represents painstaking, dangerous operations. The vessels advance through suspected mine zones at minimum velocity and demand constant overhead protection. Former Navy intelligence analysts have stressed that regional air dominance must be established before any clearance missions can begin. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers equipped with Aegis. Radar systems would provide the defensive coverage, while carrier strike fighters suppress shore-based launchers, threatening the mine warfare platforms. Each of the 8 destroyers in the Arabian Sea also operates 2 MH-60 Seahawk helicopters that can be outfitted with mine countermeasure equipment. The complete operation represents a sequential campaign: maintain degradation of Iran's shore-based missile infrastructure through continuous air operations, establish air dominance over the strait to protect mine countermeasure assets, clear and validate the navigation channels, then commence escorted transit operations, destroyers protecting supertankers. Through the 2-mile-wide passages with uninterrupted fighter coverage above, President Trump has signaled the U.S. would provide military convoy protection and federal war risk insurance backing. France committed 10 supplementary warships and 2 frigates to a European Union escort operation. Pakistan initiated its own autonomous escort program, but the fundamental challenge remains unchanged. The strait spans only 21 miles at its widest. The navigable shipping channels are considerably narrower, and Iranian mobile launch systems concealed in mountain tunnel infrastructure can fire, withdraw, and re-engage. Every tanker sustaining damage resets the insurance evaluation to 0. That's why Tripoli represents far greater strategic significance than her displacement suggests. Aircraft carriers can bomb Iranian positions. Destroyers can defeat incoming missiles, but neither can penetrate a tunnel complex and eliminate it. Neither can insert onto a cliff top and neutralize the launcher firing from a cave position above the waterline. The platform that critics previously characterized as a designer and amphibious ship incapable of amphibious operations may ultimately prove to be the asset that resolves the impasse. Not because of what she's missing, but because of what she's transporting: 2,500 Marines who don't require a landing beach to deploy ashore, and 20 stealth strike fighters that don't require a nuclear supercarrier to operate.